So much to talk about today. We have new 50 series leaks rumors. We have AMD next generation graphics card leaks rumors. We have finally getting out of the leaks and rumor space, talk about new game bundle for AMD graphics cards, which actually sounds pretty interesting. We've got a bundle for NVIDIA GPUs as well. That one's more region limited. We have AMD admitting that their new Ryzen 9000 CPUs will not be faster than your 7800X 3D you might already have. And we also have not just Windows talking about moving onto ARM, what about Linux-based ARM laptops with the new Snapdragon X Elite? Let's circle back around to the fresh rumors claim NVIDIA's next-gen Blackwell cards won't have a wider memory bus or more VRAM apart from the RTX 5090. Now, where is this coming from? I saw this PC Gamer article and I tracked their source down, which is Copite 7 Kimmy. If you're used to the PC gaming graphics card leaks rumor mill from any of the last few generations, then Copite 7 Kimmy on Twitter has been a big source of information, and as these things go, has a pretty good track record, indicating that might have actual sources somewhere within the supply chain of all this graphics card business. Now, that doesn't mean that we can say this will be 100% correct, so take it for what it is, but you guys seem to be interested in the latest info on this kind of stuff, so I'm bringing it to you. Now, so the Copite tweet basically just gives us a bunch of numbers and things that may not make any sense to you, so we'll try to parse out what this actually means. Like, what does GB202 12x8 512-bit GDDR7 mean, and so on. So the GB202 at the front here, and then followed by GB203, GB205, 206, 207, these are the graphics card dies for the next generation of NVIDIA gaming GPUs. The lower the number, so like the 2 is actually the bigger GPU die, followed by 203, that's a smaller one, 205, that's a smaller one, etc. We're then getting some indication of the structure of all the processors and everything. We don't need to get into too much technical detail, and then we get the bit bus, and then the type of memory that will be attached to that. Now, a couple of important things. One important thing here is that these GPU dies themselves may or may not be used in their full configurations for actual graphics cards that we get. For example, if I scroll down here to this videocards.com article, they have a table of how does this compare, for example, to what we have in the current lineup. So for example, right now, NVIDIA's 40 series, like the RTX 4090, is on AD102. So the next generation top-end gaming chip will probably be on GB202. So we can see how these match up, right? But the RTX 4090 doesn't use the entire AD102 die. It's not the full thing. It's a little bit cut down. And so, for example, the AD103, which we currently have, is used for both the 4080, 4080 Super, and the 4070 Ti Super. And again, the 4070 Ti Super being a little bit more cut down than the 4080, and the 4080 a little bit more cut down than the 4080 Super. You guys get the idea. So then we go down the stack. So the number where we had like the 12 star 8, so that's the GPC times TPC. You don't need a whole lot of info about what exactly that means, other than that tells us a bit about how many SMs we might expect. In other words, giving you an idea of how many like processing core type stuff we might have on these things. And then the memory bit bus tells us a lot about how much VRAM you would expect to be able to be put on these cards, okay? So that's kind of what this is giving us. So in other words, we don't know if GB202 fully will be used for the RTX 5090. In fact, the current rumors point to it probably having the bit bus cut down, as well as the SMs cut down. So in other words, we probably won't get the full thing. But you will notice that there is a huge difference between the full GB202 and the GB203. That's a rather massive difference. Also, when we look at these bit buses, this gives us an idea of how much VRAM we can expect. So if we're looking at this from a VRAM perspective, notice that we're still getting 128-bit buses down here at the bottom, just like we did with the 40 series, which would allow us to have 8 gigabytes of VRAM unless you clamshell it and get 16. We're getting 192-bit bus, which would allow us to have most likely 12, unless you clamshelled it and went to 24. So probably getting 12 again, probably getting 8 and 12 again, right? And then we have a 256-bit bus, which again would most likely be 16. And then the 384 is jumping up to 512. So if it was a full 512, you could expand that. So basically, it's how many memory modules you can attach to the GPU. Now, what I'm reading out of this, again, if this is correct, is how a PC Gamer is getting their headline here, won't have a wider memory bus or more VRAM, because those two things are related. So if this ends up being true, it is very likely that you'll still be seeing 8GB cards at the bottom end, 12GB cards in the middle, and then 16GB cards at the high end, with only the 90 class product possibly going past 16GB of VRAM. So I think a lot of people will be disappointed to see that. Again, if they go into clamshell modes, it is possible that they could fit more, but this is what we would be expecting. Now, the actual speeds of the memory should be faster, because we're seeing GDDR7 across the board, except for the very bottom tier product, which would be GB207. Now, the other thing we can look at here is the number of SMs we would expect if there's 2 per TPC. And again, that's what we're reading out of that little chunk here, right? So if we take a look at that, actually videocards.com has already very helpfully given us this. So how does it compare to the previous generation? Because notice, for example, that like GB202, if it's using its full capacity, is 192 versus 144 on 8102. That's a pretty big jump. But if you look at GB203 versus 8103, we're only getting 84 versus 80. So a much, much smaller increase. And then actually, as we go down the stack, well, notice the numbering doesn't quite line up. We have a 567 instead of a 467. And notice that 205 at 50 is lower than the 60 we have on 8104. So it looks like there could be a larger gap between those tiers, and you know that doesn't look great. Then we're getting GB206 matching 8106 at 36 and GB207 at 20, which is lower than 8107 at 24. So again, if we take a look at what videocards.com has helpfully thrown together here for us, so I'll become the mouse pointer. So I'm tiny. All right, so we've got this. So in green, we have that the top end dies, GB202, would be a 33% increase in SMs versus 8102 on the previous generation. GB203 is only a 5% improvement versus 8103. And that GB205 versus 8104, which is, not numbered the same, but at the same tier, in our stack, it looks like, is actually down 17% in SMs. GB206 is a tie, and then GB207 is down 17%. So what does that mean? Now, if we're down 17%, does that mean that we're slower? Well, again, we'll be on GDDR7 instead of GDDR6X, so we can, so the increased memory speeds could lead to some performance improvements, which could make up for that. There can also be other architectural changes. There can be clock speed differences. So if they get to go to faster clocks, especially if they're using a better node, although I think we're getting less of a large node improvement than we did going from the 3000 series to the 4000 series. So maybe not going to get the massive clock jumps like we did with this previous generation. But again, if there's clock speed increases, all sorts of things. And again, this is all leaks and rumors at this point anyway. So yeah, that's where we're at so far with the latest leak from the one of the more trusted sources in the leaks and rumors space for this type of thing. But again, it is what it is. It's leaks and rumors, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. What about the next generation of AMD? Well, okay, maybe NVIDIA's not feeling the need to push things incredibly far, because the current rumors and leaks are that AMD is just not going to be pushing the high end. So far, it's looking like there's only going to be a couple of RDNA 4 GPU dies, and that those won't probably be competing at the super high end. The latest news we have on this is that a shipping manifest is showing a Navi 48 XTX graphics card spotted in a listing. So, you know, that's about all we have off of that. We don't actually know too much about this, and the latest rumors are that we won't have any new generation GPUs until kind of the beginning of 2025. We'll have to kind of see what we get off of that. So I don't think we can learn a whole lot here other than numbered naming schemes. And this is the first time we're seeing the XTX branding on the Navi 48. So there it is. So these are the numbers we've seen so far for this. So at least 4 things in the series. But we'll have to see what comes of this as it goes. Now, as we leave the leaks and rumor side of things to, okay, so if maybe AMD's not, pushing it at the high end, what can they compete on? How about value? Now, one way to add value is lower prices. Another way to add value is game bundles. And now that only adds value if these are games you would actually buy, but if they are games that you would actually buy, then it is actually saving you money and does add value. So that's something that they can do here. And that's what AMD is starting today. So starting today, AMD is launching a new game bundle that lets you select 2 games with your Radeon RX 7800 XT or RX 7700 XT GPU purchase. So to be clear, it's only these 2 GPU models and only those. But with those, it's actually kind of cool. So if we take a look at this, you get to choose 2 of the 4 that you're most interested in. So it's kind of nice to give you some choice, and the fact that you get to choose 2, not just 1. Although in Japan, you can only choose 1. So do keep an eye out on that. Now the games are Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, Starfield, Company of Heroes 3, and Lies of P. Now, a lot of people may find at least 2 of these interesting to you. I haven't finished Lies of P yet myself, but as Souls-likes go, I'd say that's one of the better ones. It actually performs pretty well. It runs pretty well at 40 FPS on my Steam Deck. It's been one of the games that's been in heavy rotation on my Steam Deck. Haven't finished it yet. Anyway, so those are definitely some things to take a look at. Now, one thing that's helpful on this videocards.com article is they've tracked down, if you care about what sort of launcher you're redeeming these codes through, Starfield and Lies of P are redeemable through Steam, whereas it looks like Avatar is redeemable through Ubisoft Connect. Company of Heroes 3, they didn't list here, but I think they noted down here that the Company of Heroes 3 code requires users to use the Relic website. So you'd be using Relic's own website to redeem Company of Heroes 3. And again, the promotion is starting today, June 11th, and goes through July 20th. So a good chunk of the summer here. And the codes have to be redeemed by August 17th, and it has to be a participating retailer. I will link this page, which is how you can find participating retailers listed. Now, some big major ones that I would be shopping through in the United States are Amazon. They are listed. I think Newegg is listed here as well. But we got a whole bunch of other places listed as well, and it is searchable, and you can search it by region as well. So you can find out, make sure you're buying from someone that will support this game deal if you're factoring that game deal into your purchasing decision. Also, I'll mention that these GPUs have had a lot of price drops since they initially came out, especially the 7700 XTs. So 7700 XTs launched at a $450 MSRP, which was only $50 less than the much more powerful 7800 XT, which also had 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which reduced a lot of people's interest in it. You can currently find them as low as $380 for a couple of models, including the ASRock Challenger OC and the Acer Nitro OC. And if you spend a little bit more, you can also get into some Gigabyte and Sapphire and XFX options. The point is, there's a bunch of them available at or below $400. And if you check these listings, they are, at Newegg, which was a participating retailer, Newegg participating retailer, low price here on Amazon participating retailer. So it is looking like those codes would be redeemable here. Now, the reason why I haven't been recommending the 7700 XT much myself is that the previous generation RX 6800 has still been available, at least in the United States, for $360 and $370, depending on which model you purchase here, which is a lower price for about the same performance, but with 16 gigabytes of VRAM instead of 12. So I've been recommending the 6800 instead. However, 12 gigabytes of VRAM for the performance level of these cards is not by any means a disaster. And so it's possible that if you're interested in these games, that could make up for that pricing difference. Also, having a newer generation card does mean you will get probably a couple more years of driver updates and things like that. So if you hold on to your graphics cards for many years. So that's another thing to throw in there. And I'm also aware that in a lot of regions besides the United States, those good deals on the RX 6800 don't exist. So for a lot of people, that 7700 XT could be pretty interesting. The 7800 XT has also dropped from $500 to be regularly available for about $20 below that, at about $480. Again, at a lot of those same types of retailers, Newegg and Amazon, places like that, which would again be participating. And the 7800 XT is pretty good value at that price point. Unless you occasionally see the 6800 XT pop up pretty low, like it looks like I see one right now as low as $430. So again, it's possible that you would still consider the older generation cards as better value unless you're specifically interested in these games. So that's my overall thought on that. Now, I did happen to notice this as well to see if it was NVIDIA. Sometimes NVIDIA will launch their own game bundles around the time AMD does. So I saw this headline at WCCF Tech. However, when I followed up on it, this appears to be China region only. And it's also not for every RTX GPU. It's just for the Maxsun brand. But Maxsun bundles a free copy of Black Myth Wukong, which I know has a ton of Steam wish lists right now. So a lot of people are very interested in this game with their 40 series GPUs, and I think some pre-built systems with them. But I know most of my audience isn't in that region, which means that that's not going to be that useful for you. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to a little bit more, just PC hardware news, since we'll fit into today's video, which is AMD's Ryzen 9000 series CPUs won't beat the previous generation X3D models in gaming, but they'll be close. And there will be the improved 3D V-Cache models coming soon, although, again, current rumors point to maybe September, but those are just rumors. Now, this headline, Ryzen 9000 won't beat the previous Gen X3D models in gaming, that's not just rumors. That is directly from AMD. Now, previously, I had hinted that this was probably the case. I did a video recently following Computex coverage looking at Computex. You could see a benchmark score in Avatar Frontiers of Pandora for a Ryzen 9 9900X processor. And I went ahead and tried to replicate that benchmark using a 7800X 3D in my system, which isn't a perfect match, and we don't know, the RAM speeds and things like that. But my 7800X 3D was outperforming the 9900X at what I think to be matched settings. A huge part of this video is trying to figure out what settings they actually used, because it's not as simple as high 1080p. There's a lot more going on there. Anyway, this, though, is basically confirming that the 7800X 3D will outperform the Ryzen 9000 series CPUs in gaming. And this is a direct quote from AMD's Senior Technical Marketing Manager of Consumer Processors, Donnie Waligroski, during Computex 2024 when speaking with Tom's Hardware. So that is going to be the case. So it's looking like people waiting to build high-end gaming systems might want to wait for the X3D chips, which was honestly probably what we sort of knew anyway, but we're now getting it directly confirmed by AMD that will indeed be the case. Last thing I'll throw into today's video quickly is with the big, publicity around Microsoft heavily pushing Windows on ARM, specifically focusing on Qualcomm's Snapdragon X Elite based systems. It's looking like at least one company, Tuxedo, who makes Linux laptops, is interested in also pushing a lineup of Snapdragon X Elite-based Linux laptops, which I thought was pretty cool. Although their models available are just prototypes and also don't appear to be trying to do any kind of gaming or anything like these. These are definitely designed as workhorses rather than gaming systems or anything like that. And they are not giving a specific release date. It looks like they're hoping you could find one under a Christmas tree in 2024. So in other words, it sounds like they're shooting for before the end of 2024, but without any guarantees on that. Huge thank you to channel viewers, subscribers, commenters, Channel members who click the join button to directly support the channel financially. That is absolutely huge. Huge thank you to everybody who does that. Totally understand not everybody can. You guys get little thank yous in the form of like membership badges, early access to some videos, a few behind the scenes things that are members exclusives that I don't paywall anything that would go on the main channel. Somebody actually asked, one of my members was actually concerned about that. I don't paywall anything that would go on the main channel. It would just be behind the scenes stuff like, hey, here's my plans for the next month. Like that's not going to perform well on the main channel, but you might be interested as a member, other random thoughts and things like that. And I'll plan on producing a lot more of that style of content over the summer as I have a lot more free time since I don't teach full time during the summer. So anyway, I hope you guys found the video useful and or interesting. Huge thank you to everyone, and I hope all of you have an excellent day.